of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, call the roll. Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Vittori?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
All right, first item on the agenda is to approve or amend the meeting minutes for the January 12th meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? There's none, go ahead and call the vote. Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Vittori?
Yes.
And Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Next up is the fall photo contest winner. Deanne is not here, is she? She didn't make it. Okay. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fall photo contest. Bear with me, folks. I'm just getting over a cold over the weekend. So, as part of its campaign to connect people with the parks, Java Park District's communications department was excited to debut a quarterly Connect photo contest in 2015. The fall edition, lasting October through December, drew 30 entries featuring our Fall Connect themes: autumn, giving, and the season. A total of 483 votes were cast to choose first and second place winners on our Facebook page. Deanna Meyer of Bainbridge, who photographed the fall foliage in Burton Wetlands Nature Preserve, won the fall photo contest with 58 votes. Today, we present her with a framed copy of her first place work and a pint of April syrup from Swan Creek. So, Deanna was going to be here, she couldn't be here, but congratulations to her. She wrote, "My fiance and I love spending our Saturdays getting coffee in Burton and exploring the parks. We also have camped once a month in November, December, and January in Chickadee Park." Deanna must be pretty hardy. So. Stuart Hastings of Bainbridge photographed his dog Elsa at the Westwoods and claimed the third place prize. So congratulations to these photo contest winners. So, all right, next up is open to the public.
So quickly.
Yeah,
Please. And I know that I'm new, so it's going to take me some time to remember everybody's names. I'd appreciate it if you would.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm Kathy Hanratty from Chardon Township, and I wanted to say good morning, and Mrs. Dettori, Mr. Gertz, and Mr. Barker, thank you so much for letting me speak. This is a whole new board and possibly a fresh start. Each of you owe it to yourselves and to the people of Geauga County to truly understand the impact of the decisions you'll be asked to make. Please find it within yourselves the courage to learn about the parks, their history, the vision that created these parks, and the value to each and every person in Geauga County that the parks represent. Geauga Parks cover just over 3.5% of Geauga County. With a vision and foresight created these parks. The people with vision and foresight created these parks through their understanding of conservation, and they preserved some of our best places. It's the quality of these places preserved and the education of the natural world provided by the excellent team of naturalists that has made Geauga Parks a gem envied by all of Ohio in the last 50 years. Oddly enough, only 3.5% of our parkland is also covered by roof, parking, shelter, pavement, other built environment. The impact of each built space extends far beyond the footprint of the building or the parking lot, the shelter, or the road. So to say that only 3% is developed is false and misleading. You may have also been told that only 97% of the park is preserved, and that 97% of the park is preserved and off limits to people. That's another falsehood. Only 9.5% of our parkland is actually designated as preserved, and 7.6 of that is encompassed within the Pine Brook Reservation, which is still in private hands until 2019. So there's not a whole lot of totally preserved space. You may have also heard that the building of more stuff and promoting the use of thrill machines is needed to make the parks more accessible to more people. That's another falsehood. The parks have always been open to all people. That's why the public has overwhelmingly supported the parks in voting for park levies. The land protected within our parks helps keep our water and air clean and benefits every person in Geauga County. You may have heard that there's a time and a place for everything. I know that I did when growing up. These are good words to consider. Not all things are appropriate in every place. In order to make consistent and unbiased decisions about appropriate uses for a park, using a set of common sense standards by which decisions are made just makes sense. This gives you a guide as you make decisions about the legacy that you will leave for our parks. If someone is pushing you to make on-the-spot decisions, you may stop and wonder why. You have the power, actually the responsibility, to dig deep, to look at the founding mission of the parks, consider the legacy that you will leave by each decision you make. You have accepted positions of great responsibility, maybe even more than you bargained for. Perhaps you were chosen to fill that seat to do the bidding of the judge or his man, Mr. Oros. That is how it seemed at the last meeting as Mr. Oros led you through the meeting. At this meeting, you will ask to be voted upon a change to the bylaws, which will give the executive director an awful lot of power and diminish the power of the board, possibly putting you in a role where you just rubber stamp whatever he presents. Please ask yourself about this decision and about all subsequent decisions you make. Is that the legacy that I want to leave in my time on this board? I have a couple of packets that I'd like to pass out to each of the board members. Just give you some information. Thanks very much.
Catherine, some of that information that you had, I think you got from an article that was in one of our newsletters, and it was not sanctioned by this board. As far as the 3%, the $97.
This is the Park District map, and one of the things that you might want to pay close attention to, kind of our promise. First page. Our promise.
Oh, I think I've got this.
And then that one's for you. It also has a copy of the environmental report, a copy of what I just said, and a copy of the park history.
Thank you.
And the environmental report earlier, so you can give me a look if you want to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, I'm Ed Buckles from Troy Township. I was amused by the packet with the minutes in it because it sort of shortchanged the outbursts and the public comments from last time. It sort of reminded me of the old Soviet Union where when something went wrong, you just erased the person out of the next picture and rewrote history. But let's talk snowmobiling because it, in my opinion, is emblematic of what is wrong with this administration and indicative that things are getting worse. Mr. Rowers sprang this snowmobiling on an unsuspecting public last meeting during commissioner's time. Mr. Rowers is not a commissioner, but he usurped that time to avoid what he knew would be a controversial topic. He indicated that this would be a test program under special use permits. However, documents show that this has been under consideration for over a year with criteria spelled out, many of which were not met by this new program. There was no snowmobiling during observatory programs. Well, I was there the very first weekend when snowmobiling happened at Observatory Park, and there was a program going on, and people left that program and walked out to the trails and looked at the signs and turned around and left because they couldn't go on the trails. There were no rangers on duty that day to check and see if permits were being displayed. When he presented this to you folks, he didn't bother to tell you that this program has been twice rejected by prior boards. He didn't bother to tell you that the local snowmobile club has over 90 miles of trails available for use. He didn't bother to tell you that the recent survey said that over 90% of the people don't want snowmobiles in the park. He didn't bother to tell you about the Environ report that Kathy just gave you a copy of that said parks raise property values unless there are snowmobiles and other noisy activities, and then those values are lowered. The, quote, special use permits that he referenced when he made this presentation were not on the website. Regular permits were on the website, and I assume those were what were issued. One significant difference is that special use permits require proof of insurance. Regular permits do not. Anecdotally, we have information that over 60% of snowmobilers do not know that their auto and homeowner insurance policies do not cover them for snowmobiling. Mr. Oros, who was hired without competitive interviews, has a history already with the parks. He allowed illegal hunting in the nature preserve. He basically allowed unmonitored trapping of, quote, problem animals without reports, limits, or direction. He allowed mowing of a field where endangered monarch butterfly has fed and been tagged by geology school children for years. He has never given us a cogent explanation of why the trees in Westwood were accidentally marked for harvest by a neighbor. He put in at great expense and removed at great expense equipment at Bass Lake that was installed against EPA regulations. He allowed motorized boat on that lake leaking gas to remain until, quote, the season was over. There were other EPA violations rumored, but I have never gotten answers about that. There was also the $100,000 sliding board at Headwaters that Mr. Gertz put a stop to. The Shutterbug Camera Club, a long supporter of park activities, chose to leave the parks because Mr. Ross thought they were, quote, too exclusive. More exclusive than expensive snowmobiles? This is the person who told you he didn't need your approval. That may be true, but you can disapprove and stop what he does. Instead, under the proposed bylaw changes, you're ceding to him and his, quote, designee, whoever that might be, all your authority to monitor anything under bidding limits, and then within that, to be able to move funds around at his whim. I have reviewed, drafted, and approved bylaws over the years. What you're doing may be legal, but not wise. The laws should be more general, generic, not specific. They should say something like, the board may from time to time, by majority, expand or limit the executive director's authority. Not have to change the bylaws every time a new, more or less qualified person is hired, not every time an executive director proves himself worthy or unworthy. Mr. Oros works for you, not you for him. By the way, you can delegate your authority, but not your responsibility. You should check out what fiduciary duty means with your personal attorney and with Mr. Andre, the parks attorney and erstwhile judicial candidate. You need to ask yourself, who am I responsible to? The judge, Mr. Oros, the public, the parks, or the future? Thank you. I'd like to introduce Dr. Wilson.
Hello everyone, I'm Joan McAllister and I live in Munson Township. I have known John for a number of years professionally. I'm a consultant that has come through the parks for over 17 years from the state of Ohio. He did not ask me to come here today. I come here strictly as a resident. I travel often, I've been out west, I've been to the Rockies. I love nature, I respect nature, I'm a tree lover. Every chance I get, I plant a tree. And the difference between out west in the Rockies and Colorado, I've spent a lot of time out there hiking, enjoying the mountains, is a huge difference in the mindset and the concepts of what's in Geauga. And what I mean is that And that, when you go out there, you see a lot of folks that are even more physical than we are in Geauga. People love the outdoors. You see healthier people. It's frustrating to me to feel that while I'm in Geauga, I feel like we're held back of opportunities that we could have. And what I'm hearing and what I read in the paper is fear. I believe there's a lot of fear of what would happen if we allow something. As we drove in today, we looked at the beautiful scenery, the trees with all the snow, and we drove in from our homes to get here. There was pavement. If you look all around, the trees are really healthy. The pavement, the parking lot has not had any impact on the beauty that's out there. That was taken into consideration. There are pathways out there in the parks, and I am a snowmobile owner. And I'm also a safety person by trade. And the snowmobile that we have is very, very quiet. It's top of the line. Decibels are what you use to determine what noise levels are. We use that in companies to figure out what machinery they're working with and how loud they are, and we test them. There's a lot of common sense people out here that enjoy sports, and they don't dig down and run up the ground and cause damage. I hear what you're saying with the folks that are walking on the trail, that there's concerns. I think there could be more discussion on this. I just want to say that I love nature. I love out west. I love our parks. I support all the tax levies. And I'm someone who likes to use it for all purposes. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is John Augustino, Apartment Township resident. Thanks for letting me speak here. You know, first of all, I wanted to say, one of the things that's come up is about people asking questions when they come up here. John Oros has made the statement that you're allowed to make statements but not ask questions. That has never been the case prior to the Grendel era. The park commissioners welcomed questions because they knew they did not know it all. And by having some back and forth with questions and answers, they learned. And at the last meeting, there were people who could have, you know, you folks are new commissioners. I'm sure you realize you don't know it all. And an important issue came up regarding snowmobiling, and you could have gotten some input from people, and you didn't. And I think that would have. I would just like to recommend that you be able to have a little bit more flexibility there as far as public comment.
I would love to make a comment right now, is that although I understand what you're saying, I think it's highly disrespectful to me that you don't think that I would come in here doing my job. I would never vote on something if I didn't do research about it prior. I'm not a rubber stamp. I will always do my homework. I will read what I need to read before I vote on something, or I won't vote.
But you did, in essence, by not making a motion to stop John Rose from doing what he did, in essence, you voted for it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? When did that issue come up to you?
This is not going to be a back and forth. What I'm telling you is just on that specific, I would like you to at least respect that I will always do my homework. You may not respect my opinion, you may not like my voting, but I will always do research and homework before I come to this meeting.
Okay.
Always.
Well, there did not seem, again, the issue of snowmobiling has been brought up here, has come up in the past, and none of the commissioners have been in favor of it. John Earl said, supposedly it was going to be studied by the park in the past. That study seemed to not go on. I checked with other parks. I've done some studies, and Cleveland had snowmobiling at one time. They got rid of it because of problems with it. I wonder if anyone here, John Orosa, I wonder if he talked with anyone in Cleveland to find out why they stopped it. Lake County has no snowmobiling. Summit County has no snowmobiling. Portage County has no snowmobiling in their parks. they realize that Lake County has no snowmobiling. They realize that there's problems with it. I talked with a person who was in charge of Hunterson Park. Apparently there's something in state law that allows something like that at Hunterson. He said this person told me it was terrible over there, the damage that people went off the snowmobiling area. They did thousands of dollars of damage to the golf course. So these are just some example. This rule that John brought up about experimental programs was never meant to be something like this. And I just think you should have looked into it further before you allowed him to go ahead with it. Particularly since it was something that the park commissioners had not been in favor of in the past. Regarding just going into a little bit more about asking the questions, if we do ask questions, I don't expect you to have an answer to everything. You don't know everything that I might ask, but you could at least say, hey, I understand your question, I'll get back with you. John Rose said we may or may not get back with you. And that's kind of an arrogant answer, and I think the public in general think public officials tend to be too arrogant anyway. Again, I know you don't know everything, but if I ask a question here, I can understand if you don't know it, but please say, I would urge you to say, I'll get back with you, or at least I'll give you an explanation of why I can't answer the question. And again, as has been mentioned before, by other people who have come up here today, please talk to us. We have a lot of expertise in our group. If you want some input, we'd be glad to give you an opinion before you vote on something. Over at Observatory Park, there were trail signs, as been mentioned. These trail signs were up before, first of all, it was stated by John at the last meeting that this snowmobiling was supposed to go on in February. Well, it started in January without nobody knowing about it. On the park's website, there was nothing on the park's website about it starting in January. There was a permit for people to fill out, this to email or send in if you wanted to go snowmobiling. And then when people showed up, even during the week, there were these no trail closed signs. How could somebody do that, put up trail closed signs when the snowmobiling was started on the weekend? I know you asked the park ranger, you asked Mr. Sloan if he had any input on that, and he said they would handle it. And I understand, you're going to do the best you can with handling snowmobiling.
Mr. Oxy, could you wrap it up? We have others that would like to.
Okay, but one of the problems has been that there have been a lot of trespass of snowmobiling and off-the-road vehicles in the past, and I wonder if anyone has ever been ticketed. I called in a complaint regarding Observatory Park as the snowmobile had gone up the road towards the Nassau building illegally. It was not allowed there, and no one got back with me. I left a message on John's phone and nobody got back with me. So I guess, does anybody know if anybody's ever gotten a ticket for off-the-road vehicle, either snowmobiling or...
Mr. Augustine, I wrote
Okay.
down all of your questions about the
Okay.
signs, and I will take care of
That's all I
it
have.
back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Kathleen Webb, I live in Munson Township, and I have a few more comments about snowmobiling. After last month's park commissioners meeting, I tried to put myself in your shoes as commissioners, and it seems that you were asked to make a decision about a snowmobiling project brand new, I mean, just jumping right in here, it wasn't even on the agenda. And I did a little bit of research, I came up with some information that I think has been already stated today, but I'll repeat it. And it was the Montville Highlanders Snowmobiling Club that came and made a presentation to the board last December or November, I think. And, but I don't think the information came out then that members of that club actually have, I was told, 100 miles of trails, connected trails, available to them to ride. Some in Montville, connected to Thompson, connected to that Greenway Trail in Ashtabula. So that's 100 miles of trails. And it seems to me that they don't really need a couple miles of trails that are there in Observatory Park. Now I can understand when someone comes to you and makes a heartfelt presentation, and it's Mr. Hofstetter, who's the president of Montville Highlanders Snowmobile Club. He's passionate about his activity. He really believes strongly in it, sees it as a family activity, and I can understand that. And when he comes to you to request using the park, you know, why not, right? Well, that's where common sense criteria come in. And I had a conversation with John Oros, very, very helpful. I was wondering what instruction or what do you have as commissioners that tell you what your responsibilities are? I think Mr. Buckles brought this up too. What are your responsibilities, your duties? Do you have any kind of material that prepares you for your role as commissioner? And he said, no, not really. There's nothing written other than what's in the Ohio Revised Code. So it would be helpful to have criteria that when someone comes to you and wants to do something like snowmobiling in the park, you can stop and think and have criteria to compare it to. And you're just not listening to someone's heartfelt presentation. And actually, snowmobiling, it's an expensive hobby. And I started pricing snowmobiles, and I think they land around the $10,000 price range. I personally couldn't invest in a snowmobile, especially not something that I couldn't use consistently. We don't always have snow. And I asked Mr. Hofstetter if there would be snowmobiles for rent, and he said no, that they're too expensive to rent. So what you seem to be doing are you're allowing a very small group of, it's a very elite hobby. You're allowing these people access to Observatory Park, County Park, to the exclusion of everybody else who doesn't have a snowmobile on those particular trails. I just wonder why. The logic kind of falls apart when I start to examine it. So I sent each of you commissioners an email. It was kind of long. I have a copy for you in case you didn't have a chance to read it. And I also have a copy of our common sense criteria on this handout and also here. So I think they're important enough to stress. Thank you.
Since you've asked, so I'll give you that now. Thank you very much. Cheryl.
Could you give this young lady your last name?
Sure. Actually, I signed this on the way too. I'll have you read for 2 weeks.
Should I go roll call?
Hi, I'm Shelley Chernin from Russell Township. Before I read my prepared statement, a thought just came up that I just want to mention briefly, that I feel some confusion that you did your homework on snowmobiling, but there was nothing in last month's board packet about it, and the public knew nothing about it. So did you know in advance it was coming up to be able to do your homework? I'm just confused.
Well, I'm also a citizen, so I've been following for the past year as well, just as you have been.
Yes, but up until Mr. Earl spoke at Commissioner time, we had no idea, the public, that there was going to be a snowmobiling program. In fact, it's been voted down twice before. So yes, we've all done research on snowmobiling generally, but not in particular in that park at that time. So if you did homework on that, you knew something before the rest of us. Under my prepared statement, as I thought about public comment time today, I realized there's just so many things I wanted to talk about that I was going to have a tough time getting through them all in 3 minutes. I'm going to do my best. There's the pending bylaws changes, there's the snowmobiles, there's the deliberate bypassing of the Board of Commissioners by the Executive Director to authorize the use of the snowmobiles in the park, which wasn't included